So we're going to be reacting to this interview with Ghostcrawl. We're not going to react to the whole hour-and-a-half interview. You guys can check that out. So we're going to react to one segment, which is titled "Why Classic WoW Was a Bigger Bet Than It Looked." So let's just see what Ghostcrawler had to say about working and designing and developing World of Warcraft.
Why was Blizzard so convinced that people didn't necessarily want to play Classic WoW again? Like Yeah,
I gotta move my camera 1 second, everybody.
I don't want to say that you think you do, but you don't. There's a classic phrase. I'm not trying to bait anything.
I was on stage for that conversation. It was an immense amount of work for Blizzard. The way the data was structured at the time was there could only be like one set of data for Warcraft, and there was no concept of branching it off to be like, well, this is the older version of the warrior. It was just like, well, once you change the data.
Which is kind of interesting, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, because you guys remember the infamous clip from BlizzCon where they literally said, you think you do, but you don't. And it turned out to be so horrifically wrong and backfired that eventually Classic WoW was what saved WoW's player numbers, sub numbers, when it dropped to below 2 million in Shadowlands. Now, I do know retail is the more popular game right now in 2026, but at the time, during Shadowlands, during 2019, it genuinely did save the sub numbers of a heavily declining game. And it's really interesting that the game had that they were so convinced that nobody wanted to play Classic WoW. Because they put it in their head, in the back of their mind going, nobody wants this shit. You guys don't want it. We changed everything because you guys kept complaining about it. Not realizing that the people that they had changed the game for, many of them had quit over the years, so a lot of the people that loved the original version had never gone forward with the future versions of the game.
Damage Immortal Strike, it's changed. Like there's no sense of versioning. Like why would we have needed that? All we needed was let's push the next patch to players. They don't have it yet. And so there was this concern that if we went back and did all of that engineering work, which literally was months of work, that it would be a novelty, that players would play it for like a few hours, be like, yeah, that was cool. Okay, back to retail. And I think that was the genesis of the...
I can't believe they actually thought that. Can you guys imagine the conversation with the people sitting in the room going like, oh, these guys are all idiots. They're all immediately going to quit retail and quit Classic and go back to retail. And the exact opposite happened where Classic WoW kept climbing and climbing and climbing and retail WoW kept declining and declining and declining. Now, again, they finally fixed retail, so it's in a good spot now. But I kind of want to be a fly in that room, listen to those conversations, and figure out why like there was such a disdain for the idea of Classic. Because they've apologized for us many times, but I'm truly curious why it evolved to be like that.
The think you do of like, yeah, it sounds cool, but you're going to get in there and remember, oh yeah, I have to have ammo. Well, that wasn't fun. Or, oh, I'm dying all the time. That wasn't fun. If they could have trivially flipped the switch, I think they would have done it because there would have been no cost to it. It was the huge investment of time. And I know players could say like, oh, Blizzard has so much money. Why don't they want to spend it? But it's really about the opportunity cost. If you have one of your best engineers doing nothing but making a versioning system for the data, they're not adding new features or fixing bugs or that sort of thing.
I think that's what's so important to call out. Having also worked in a company that does an MMORPG, it's not as black and white as players often like to see. Like the opportunity cost is a really good point.
Yeah.
And then there's also the issue of people discussing and debating how much time it takes, how much dev energy it takes. You know, this is just a toggle. Why does it take so much time? For example, Iron Man, right? Soul of Iron. And they made an add-on that worked in a day, but adding that to Blizzard, adding that to the official servers took a lot more time. And the curiosity factor is why we as players can sometimes do things more easily with the add-on tools that Blizzard can do with official tools. Because again, the code base is so fucking cooked that I remember talking to a Classic dev who worked on like Classic 2019, 2021, and they were talking about how convoluted and difficult it was to fix a lot of the back-end things. Like people seem to think that it was piss easy to just implement Classic, turn it on. And at the end of the day, it took them so much work, and they still fired a huge portion of the Classic dev team, the original dev team that Bobby Kotick fired before it launched. This was in 2018, something like 2017, 2018. They fired a huge portion of the Classic dev team. So the development time went less and less. Like they had actually hired and set up a team and then let everybody go because Bobby Cook didn't think it was going to be a financial success. But still, let's keep going.
You're putting your best engineer on that. You're not going to be able to build new things.
But I do agree that Blizzard got it wrong. Like clearly, Classic was a smart idea. It has legs. The combination of nostalgia for those of us who were there, and then there's millions of players who missed it. Like all of China missed that experience because by the time WoW launched in China, they quickly got caught up to, I think it was Wrath of the Lich King at the time. So they never really experienced vanilla the way we did in the West.
Was there ever an urge or
another thing is, like, for example, and I did see Tom Allison's tweet, delayed by 3 more hours. It's not coming out till 9 p.m. EST. It's diabolical, but it's whatever. Another thing is, like, for example, Blood Elves. They made Blood Elves for the East Asian audience, mostly Koreans because they didn't really want to play it. And they said this before, but like, they made the Blood Elves to make it more palatable to the Horde, palatable to East Asian countries because they would not play the Horde. And again, like you said, China was very late to the game. They didn't launch until 2009 or 10, if I remember correctly.
Idea to go back and just add more content to Classic, because there are so many zones and areas that are just kind of empty, or just kind of, they were meant to be the Dragon Isles, for instance. They were meant to be something where there were areas that were kind of pre-Outland, but like not Outland, because then the development team broke the two expansions apart. Was there ever discussion about just wanting to add more?
Oh, for sure. And to be fair, some was added over time. You would see like...
See, that's the thing. Like, I'm gonna DM Ghostcrawler and see if he'd be down to sit with me on an interview talking about Classic WoW and the fundamental development and the back-end design of it. Because this is an interview about all of like MMO and development, because the whole podcast is not just about Classic WoW. But I would love to do like a 1-hour sit down with Ghostcrawler and actually discuss the development cycle of WoW, what made it so successful, why it actually took off, how they chose to add or remove something from the game. I think that would be a phenomenal discussion point.
Like holidays or new, very simple quests added. But when we hit Cataclysm, that was the time when we felt like, gosh, the older content is so old. Let's go back and fix it up. And the idea originally was, let's look for places that are very empty, that don't have anything there. There was nothing in like Deadwind Pass, I think, and a few other zones like that. And let's go fix the areas that are kind of weak. It spiraled out of control to just a complete revamp of some of these zones. And we did so much of that we kind of ran out of time to really do it right. We originally, the way we talked about it is we had this big map of Azeroth, and there were green zones, yellow zones, and red zones. The red zones were like a total redo, like Ashara. And the green...
That's interesting, that the development of Cataclysm wasn't even meant to be Cataclysm. The Cataclysm became Cataclysm because the devs didn't handle the timing correctly. God, man, I really want to talk to fucking Ghostcrawler about this shit now. This would be such an amazing conversation, because this is somebody who was very high up in Blizzard at the time. He knew a lot and was doing a lot.
Zones are like, they're mostly good. Let's just maybe do a couple of tweaks there. But by the end of Cataclysm, they had essentially all become red zones. Like every quest chain had been completely redone, and almost none of the original content remained. And I think that was a mistake. That was scope creep on our part, and we should have had a little more, I guess, resilience to the idea that we have to touch everything.
Was it pressure from behalf of was it pressure coming from you guys internally, or was this the things that players were telling you? Because I can imagine there's a level of perfectionism, like especially with an idea as kind of, I don't want to say crazy, but Cataclysm was nuts. Like, well, let's just redo the entire world. Let's break it apart. Let's change. For me, it was traumatic because I loved vanilla WoW. I loved all the zones. I had so many memories there, and I remember, I think it was 2010. Like at first, I remember watching the trailer and like hearing about the expansion. I thought this is the most amazing.
I'm not gonna lie, leaving it on Ghostcrawler's face while he's talking is actually hilarious. Because like Ghostcrawler's just sitting here like listening, like, we just gotta look at Ghostcrawler and his fucking bald head, nodding along as the other guy's talking.
Thing ever. And then I remember I jumped into the game. I'm like, this isn't the same place I remember. Like it was cool, but something was lost. So I think going back to what I was saying just now, was there? It sounds like you guys were creating the pressure on yourselves to perfect everything and kind of keep up to the hype that the world was kind of seeing you as.
It was all internal. It was this just sadness that, as I said, the philosophy at the time was when a new expansion comes out, you just jump to that expansion. And so those older WoW zones were just dead, particularly the higher level ones, because as players got to like level 50, 55, they would just jump to Burning Crusade at that point and never finish the Winter Springs, the Silithus, the
It's interesting that they thought so little of vanilla, but at the same time, it makes me wonder when they were going to like by Wrath of the Lich King, how many people were still playing vanilla or still playing TBC? A lot of people were just trying to get to Wrath because it was the culmination of the story. I wonder if like the anniversary slash vanilla hype and like desire for it, I probably didn't even start until mid late Cataclysm and early Mr. Pandaria when people started wanting to go back towards anniversary and vanilla. At the same time, there's nothing ever happened about that. Where they thought, they hoped, they prayed, and then nothing happened. They never really went back. They never really handled things correctly. And Cataclysm changed the world drastically to the point where it was a whole separate MMO, so a little game. So little of vanilla was insanely bad compared to Wrath of the Lich King design. That's what I'm saying. Like for the players of the time, why on earth would anybody stick around and level in the world when by 2010 PCs had become slightly more common and acceptable? People were rating more accurately. There were way more people playing WoW. It had become a much more accessible, normalized game to play. So I truly am very curious to see exactly, like, God, I wish Blizzard ever shared their data. You know, because back in the day they used to share data all the time, and now they never share data.
like high level vanilla zones. And so we're like, gosh, we have all this wasted content. Can't we figure out a way to reuse it? I just think the goal was noble and the solution we came up with was not effective. In retrospect, I think having Classic was a much more effective way to get some use out of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then with the remixes they've done where they've just kind of added weird tweaks to like make everything feel new again because you can't just remember where everything was. Everything's changed.
Do you feel like the team is in a bit of a pickle?
How would that have worked if at the time, instead of Cataclysm, they made a different expansion? Because the original idea of Cataclysm was Deathwing and an underground continent and changing of the world drastically. I wonder how World of Warcraft would have looked if they had launched Vanilla as a separate game back in 2010 around Cataclysm and they'd done a separate continent, a separate experience in, you know, like the underground, the underworld, the for example, the elemental planes. Because I remember that before Cataclysm and during Cataclysm, they changed the lore a lot. Like, for example, troll gods and the trolls, like, predating and fighting off the Titans and fighting the Black Empire used to be a thing back in the day. That lore all got scrapped, right? The OG trolls were mage gods, mage kings. And they were, like, dominating the world. And they predate the Black Empire's landing. So the troll gods and the troll mages were fighting. Like, the trolls had enslaved the elementals. And then the old gods came and they were at war with each other. And some of the old elementals, you know, fled over to the old gods, yada yada, war back and forth. And then the Titans came. And, you know, well, afterwards they just changed the lore completely. So the trolls are completely worthless, shitty people that are just like pre-elves. That's all they are now, just pre-elves.
Now, the WoW team, because of the fragmentation of the experience, you've got anniversary servers, classic servers, retail servers, hardcore servers. Like, it just feels like, what is the identity for WoW moving forward? And does that mean classic plus? Because I think that's the question that everyone's asking themselves is, where does the game go now?
Yeah, as someone like I'm not actively playing, and someone who's not engaged, it seems very confusing of like, what of the 30 versions of WoW are you talking about? It's possible that active players don't feel that way. Like, it all makes sense to them in the same way you could jump into Roblox and play a bunch of different games and that's not confusing to you. I do think it probably creates, again, an opportunity cost. I know that the WoW team has had to get enormous in order to service all of these different aspects of the game. And now they run into conundrums like, well, we did a Mr. Pandaria remix. Do we now do a Mr. Pandaria classic at almost the same time? You know, is that strange?
I think they regret MoP Classic because the numbers aren't that great, but they probably made a fuck ton of money on MoP Classic, so I don't think they really regret it. But like, MoP is getting towards the second half of its life cycle. We still have one more phase in the Siege of Orgrimmar afterwards, so 2 more phases. But then are we getting WoD Classic? I mean, he's not wrong about the amount of versions of the game, the amount of versions of World of Warcraft, the amount of how classic WoW feels in general, because retail is just retail and then remix. Legion remix right now. But classic is anniversary era. You then, of course, have hardcore era. You have SOD era. And, you know, if you have MOP classic. But overall, I would say Classic is probably heading towards Classic Plus. I would be very confident saying it's heading towards Classic Plus. But we won't actually know until it eventually someday drops.
Yeah, I don't know. I've thought a little bit about, like, if that was my problem to fix, what would I do? But for all I know, they don't, you know, internally, maybe they don't think it's a problem.
Overall, a good video. This is by a guy called Genghis. I'm not signed in on Opera GX, so I don't leak personal information by accident. There'll be a link in the description down below. Go check this guy out. Great creator. That was a really good interview. Really excited to see more interviews that he does. He clearly just started making YouTube videos, but it's still super peak. So, really fucking cool, all things considered. Now let's go take a look at World of Warcraft once again, shall we, chat? Let's launch Burning Crusade Anniversary, and let's see what happens. This is a great video. It just came out. Let me look at this video by Sokens. Let me see. 1 second, guys. Oh, no realms available. Who's surprised? Nobody is surprised at all. Alright, now let's take a look at Opera and let's see this last link. Why I tried retail and why I was wrong. This looks like a good video. I'll take a look at this tomorrow. I am actually... Hey, Sokam, I have theory that we're going to Wrath Annie and then Classic Plus is going to be a rework. Merging TBC and Wrath and Anniversary. I think that might actually happen. There's no way they did an extra 3 hours. I know they did 3 hours. I know they did 3 hours, but there's no way they extended it to midnight, right? 6 a.m. tomorrow. 6 a.m. tomorrow. So it's not even coming out today. You're telling me Classic WoW doesn't drop till 6 a.m. fucking tomorrow. Oh, 6 p.m. I'm blind. Sorry, I'm panicking. 6 a.m. tomorrow. 6 p.m. tonight. Yeah, sorry. I'm blind. I apologize, guys. I am sorry. You know what? I am sick as fuck. I am gonna go live again at 8 p.m. if the game is live, because I bet money they're gonna delay this shit again. And like, I'm not staying up for 10 hours while I'm sick as fuck for them to delay the game again. So I'm gonna go lay down in bed and I'm gonna go get a nap in. If they delay the game again, I'm just gonna do a 24-hour stream tomorrow. So let's raid Cargo Gaming. We're gonna go give Cargo some love. Okay, my bad, guys, my bad. Also, if you haven't followed yet, follow for the giveaway. It lasts 7 days. I'm giving away the Dark Portal bundle, the whole big thing right here. It comes with the level boost, game time, and everything. All you gotta do to enter is the exclamation mark giveaway, and then you drop a follow, and that's it. But I'll be going live early tomorrow or live later today. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the follows and the gifted subs and everything. You guys are amazing. See you guys later on. Adios, everybody. Peace.